Forewarning, a third of the way through this video, my audio stopped recording. No idea why, everything seems to be plugged in, so after about 6 minutes the audio just kind of disappears. So I'm going to put commentary. They seem to have misplaced the cubman. Alright, so anyway, the list. Battery tray, wiring, new intake, the engine cradle, version 5 or 6 I'm not sure, fuel pump, fuel lines, fuel tank mounts, steering mod, some switches, the seat, that's not marked as being important for driving, the floor. That's all in stage 1 of what's required to drive, but not necessarily. And for making it pretty, we've got to do side panel, guards, lights, bonnet and paint. So, I think today we're just going to weld in the battery tray. So the cubman's already on the floor, I might as well just stand it up and weld the tray in place. I've decided I don't need to flip the chassis over to do the fuel system anymore, so I'll stand the chassis up on its end, weld the battery tray in, then it can come back up on the table, and then we can start doing the fuel system, which is the fuel tank mounts, mounting the fuel pump, and then running the fuel lines. So for the fuel lines I've got some 7.8mm stainless tube, because that's the size that the fuel pump inlet and outlet are, so that's why I made the bungs on the fuel tank that size, so the whole fuel system is the same size. Now I'm going to have to make an adapter on the end to shrink it down to the 6mm that the carby has, but neither here nor there. Now the steering mod, in the center shaft there's not actually a spline going into the uni joint, it's just clamped on and it's got a scallop for where the bolt goes through, and yeah, it didn't really clamp well enough, and the amount of force to get it to turn, because of the 15 degrees of camber that it has, it was just sliding. So I've got to chop the end off that shaft and put the new end on that has the spline on it. That's the steering mod. Switches, that's just putting part of the wiring system, so we won't worry about that for now. A floor. So after I've done the fuel system, then I can put the floor in. So that's a big step. Now the floor, basically I'm putting the sheet of steel down on the table, putting the chassis back on top, clamping it down hard and welding it everywhere. So yeah, let's get started. Mark this battery tray off finally, and then get on to the fuel system. And new gloves! Normally I only wear these welding gauntlets during winter when it's really cold here, but I'll make an exception for my subscriber. Thank you again. So, there's a bunch of little bits and pieces that need to be welded up since last time I had it upside down welding, and then I'm going to clamp the battery tray in and weld him up as well, so let's get on with it. already.
And just like that, the battery tray can be signed off. Yay!
So now I just need to flatten off everything that's on the bottom, because the floor has to sit flush. Yeah, I've had enough sanding now, so I'm just gonna clean it all off and then start on the fuel tank mounts. So, back on the table. So, for some reason, I ran out of audio about 1/3 of the way through today's filming. And yeah, so there's about 6 minutes of episode 24 with audio, and then about 12 minutes without. Might be 10 minutes without. I don't know. I haven't quite finished the editing yet. It's actually like 11:30 at night. And yeah, I'm having to get creative and customize the audio. So I've gone through and put together a video of I did a rendering of all the footage that had no audio, so I'm going to watch this and tell you what's going on. So shall we start? Alright, setting up the fuel tank, doing the mounts, and working out where I'm going to put the fuel pump. So this is the pump, and well, I originally had planned on putting it on the left hand side, just down here, because that is where I put the bungs, because the fuel lines can run down this side and go straight to the carby. Now, because I've got the brake caliper on there, there's no room. So one of the options was to just move the fuel tank across, and then I've got lots of room for the fuel pump, but then the fuel cap is offset from the center and I really don't like that. So we're not going to be doing that. I could cut the whole top off the tank and move the fuel filler, but that's a lot of work to do that. So that's not going to happen either. So what I'm going to do is run the fuel lines underneath from one side to the other, and then mount the fuel pump over this side next to the sprocket. Now it's about the only space there is for it, so that's where it's going to go. I'm still talking about something, I don't know what it was. Basically I'm going to run hard lines from the outlet at the bottom of the tank, underneath the tank, and then through the pump, and then back under the tank, and then it's going to come out at the back. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is put the mounting brackets on the sides of the fuel tank. So I've just got a piece of angle aluminium, and we're just going to cut the 4 brackets off this and then fully weld them onto the sides of the tank. Now, the death wheel. Don't use it. Here's a video. You should watch it. Zing, 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 ding, ding. lost one. There it is. Alright, so just going to round off the edges, just so they look nice, and then clean them up ready to weld. So peel off the plastic because it's nasty if you warm it up. So where I just took the corners off, I need to just let this go back a bit. Alright, now the tank. We're just going to put one at the top, one at the bottom. They're going to be in about 10mm from the edges so that the welds on the brackets aren't anywhere near the welds of the actual tank. So if the bracket fails, it won't make the tank leak. So, ready, set, TIG. Alright, so first thing I do is put a tack weld on two opposite corners of the bracket. That way it stops it from lifting and moving. And then once you got your two tack welds on, start at one of the other corners and then do a weld finishing at the tack. It's a good practice to finish your welds at a tack and never to actually start them, because with aluminium, when you start a weld on a tack, then it quite often melts the tack and pops it, and then everything springs apart again. Oh, I forgot, I've got to take the cap off just so that it lets the heat out of the tank but also doesn't melt the O-ring that's inside the cap, because the tank is getting very hot by this stage. Tick, 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 tick. Alright, well, I'm probably just going to cut off some of this TIG footage because TIG, 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 TIG. Ooh, nice bit of solar flare, lens flare, beautiful. Again, starting from a corner that doesn't have a tack and welding up towards a tack. It's usually best to weld, tack three sides and then start the weld from the fourth corner, but it doesn't matter. Alright, so that's the tank done. It's way too hot to do anything else with, so we're going to go onto the fuel pump bracket. It's going to mount down here, and well, let's just make a bracket. So I've got a piece of 25mm box section. So I'm just going to come in, it's about 140mm long, this bracket. I'll just mark it all out and then cut it. It's a little bit of a funny shape because it can be. I might drill some holes in it later just to lighten up what's left, but this bracket is very slimline to start with. Okay, so with the cutter, I actually put a 10x10 notch in it to go over the chassis rail, and then beveled it up to nothing where the pump's going to mount. Some nice sparks. Alright, so finish off the rusty outside. Yeah, I could probably cut out some of this footage. So here we go. Pump's going to go here, a couple of holes, drill them through at 6mm, and I'm going to weld some captive bolts in, I think. Normally I do nuts, but I'm going to put bolts in here, so then just because I can. Using a 10mm just to deburr the holes. Now these bolts that I've got are way too long. I'm just using them to mock up. going to fit about here somewhere, so zap. Well, it's tacked in now, might as well keep going. So I've left clearance for the sprocket. That's good, so I'll pull the sprocket out and I can get the last weld in. The sprocket is no longer needed in the chassis, so might as well come out and go in the box with the rest of the parts. Now, we'll go on to the fuel tank mounts on the chassis. That's 25 by 50 millimeter box section. It's a 2.5 millimeter wall thickness, and well, I'm just cutting it into angle brackets. There's two for the back, and then two smaller ones for the front. Cut them exactly the same. Put these sideways cuts in first. Well, I've still got a lot to hold on to. Oh great, now it's starting to rain while I'm trying to do audio. Alright, so that's the 4 brackets. I've cleaned them up, finished them. Now the 2 front ones need to be bent. So what I'm doing is just clamping it onto the edge of the table, making sure it's at the right distance. And then if I just hit straight on the end, it would just bend the square corner. So I'm using the cold chisel to hammer on the inside of the folded part so that it won't bend. So then I end up with 2 nice square bends. Alright, so top brackets, clamp them in. The fuel tank's actually packed up into place on a lot of rags so that it's jammed up into the chassis in the right spot. So a couple of tacks to hold the top mounts in. Then I'll clamp the bottom mounts into place. No, I just weld them. Weld the top mounts in, then clamp the bottom ones into place. Take the fuel pump off first because it doesn't need to be there anymore. It was also in the way of the clamp, so. Yeah. It's good having lots of clamps. Alright. Put the gloves on and tack weld, and then weld up into the tack again. Put a tack weld in, start at the other end, weld down to the tack. Yep. Alright, so we're going through with a 6mm hole first, and then we're going to enlarge it to an 8mm. Because I'm putting M8 bolts in it. Drill, 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 drill. Alright, so that's the 4 holes done in 6mm. So now I'm going through and putting the 8mm bit in. Alright, so pull the tank out again. There we go. Done with the tank for now. I'll clean up the holes later. And all we've got to do now is take the tops off the top mounts because they're sticking up above the top of the chassis. Quick cut, take them off. Lots of sparks. That might be the new thumbnail for this video. Finish it up, a couple extra spots that haven't been finished yet, and that's it. So, really weird way to make a video with commentary. So, obviously I've got the audio working again now. I'm not sure what was wrong. It looked like the microphone was plugged in, but there might have been just out like a millimeter, just not making full contact in the plug in the back of the microphone. Because there's a plug in the camera, it was expecting all its audio from the microphone and not using the onboard one, so doesn't matter. Alright, so today the list we got marked off. The battery tray, finally marked it off. There you go. Now, fuel pump, fuel tank mounts. Yeah, so fuel lines I'll be running tomorrow if all goes well. Then all I have to do is put in a floor, redo the steering mount, which I explained at the start of the video when I still had audio, and do the wiring loom. Now, I can get the engine running without doing a full loom. I'm just going to have to hot wire the fuel pump onto a switch and stuff, but we can give it a go, I suppose, because I really want to drive this thing. So anyway, yeah, that's it for today. Hopefully tomorrow's video goes better. And as always, customize everything.